Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to Ed Up on the Ed Up Experience podcast, where we make education your business. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here live in Doha, Qatar at the World Innovation Summit for Education, where we have literally intersected with global education leaders. I cannot tell you what an honor it is to be here to talk with the people that we've talked with today. We have another amazing gentleman with us here, and I'm going to bring him right now. Here he comes. Dr. David Moinina Sengeh. He is the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education and Chief Innovation Officer at the government of Sierra Leone. David, what an honor to have you with us. Tell us everything that's exciting that's happening in Sierra Leone.
I think in Sierra Leone, one of the things that's really exciting is you see that our sense of development, our sense of hope is based with education, is in education. Our national development plan is titled Education for Development. Our president's flagship program is Human Capital Development. And Sierra Leone is one of the only countries that expanded its education sector budget during COVID.
Amazing.
That's I don't think there are many countries that have done that, right? Education was cut, obviously, 7 ways from Sunday, if you will. So what is the difference between basic and senior secondary education? Tell me, what are there different levels? Are there 4 different, because the way we would do it in the United States is you have elementary, you have secondary, and so on. So how does that work for you? And what's your focus?
Sure. There's a system called 6334, which is what our Education Act says. So 6 years of primary education, 3 years of junior secondary education, 3 years of senior secondary education, and 4 years of tertiary education. We changed that now. We have 1 year of early childhood education, and I see that the US is also moving to making early childhood education important.
Yes.
You have 2 years of the other day, I joked tweets that President Biden was learning from President Bill. It wasn't a joke, really,
Yikes!
No, in the sense that,
Yeah.
I think early childhood education is important.
Yeah.
And I think it's great to see that countries like the US are also recognizing that, and it makes all of our work easier as ministers of education. So early childhood education is now an integral part of what we do. And then primary education. So basic education is pre-primary all the way to junior secondary school. And
Okay.
then you have the senior secondary education. And the reason why we have that distinction is you could follow academic route into senior secondary school, and you take an exam and you go to college and university and you do degrees and all of that.
Yeah.
Or you could take a vocational route where you then can learn skills out after your basic education route, and you take an exam as well, or you just go through to skills development with your basic education certificate exams.
Right.
So I'm in charge of all the way the 633. That's where we stop. But interestingly,
That's a long pipeline. That's a lot to be in charge of.
It is. It's very exciting.
It's a big responsibility.
About 30% of our population are within that category. And it's a fun responsibility, I think, to be in a space where you're imagining and defining what essentially will shape your country's future. Sierra Leone is very young as well. 70% of the population is under 30 years old.
Wow.
And so you have to think about skills development, and if you look at the adult literacy, particularly for women in rural areas, it's less than 10%. And the current status quo is not good. There was a period when Sierra Leone was called Athens of West Africa. And people came from all over. People came from England, people came from Zimbabwe, Ghana, Gambia to study in Sierra Leone. But even that quality education was very limited. It was only for a few select people in urban areas. It wasn't for everybody in rural communities. It was good, but it wasn't equitable.
So you're trying to bring it to everyone. You're bringing education to us. But is education as accessible in Sierra Leone as it needs to be? Or are there still pockets that are not?
So that's the major change that's happened in Sierra Leone since 2018. And it's the president's free quality school education initiative. And then in 2020, we had this policy called radical inclusion in education.
Okay.
And we essentially said we will stop at nothing until every boy and every girl, no matter where they come from, no matter who they are, no matter their physical ability, no matter their parents' income, no matter their religion, class, gender, can go to school. And that means we'll change all the laws, we'll break what we need to break, we'll build what we need to build, we'll talk to who we need to talk to, and make sure that kids with physical disabilities, seen and unseen, kids with mental disabilities, cognitive disabilities, kids with from poor backgrounds, kids who are in hard to reach areas that nobody's ever been, that no teacher wants to go to,
Right.
where there is no school, and pregnant girls can go to school. And that's what we're working on. So if you look at SDG 4,
Wow.
if you
That's the
look,
wow button.
thank you.
You're welcome.
If you look at the SDG 4, it talks about equitable access to lifelong learning,
Right.
to education, quality education. Um, and we believe that this is the right thing for everybody around the world to be working towards. And the quality of a system cannot be measured without equity in it. And equity is a fundamental attribute to quality education. And so we are building systems that embed equity and justice um, in our sense of accomplishment in Sierra Leone.
Which, of course, you have to build early. It's a 633. If you're building
Well,
equity,
1633.
right, 1633. So you're building equity. You're building in a lifelong learning mindset, which typically for learners, and for those of us that went on and you get a master's degree and you get a doctoral degree, it's kind of like it, and you wash your hands of it and you move on. Now they're talking about that lifelong learning needs to last till you're 100 years old. If we make it to 100, you'll know better than me. I'm looking at your research focused on the vaccines for tuberculosis. I mean, geez. You're probably good in a pinch, like a national, global pandemic. You're probably good in a pinch, but lifelong learning. What does that mean, and how do you create a mindset for kids in Sierra Leone that learning will never stop? Learning that they may be experiencing for the first time and not really getting on board with it in the full way. How do you convince them that it's never going to end and they got to keep upskilling and reskilling?
I think that's our challenge. That's what the world needs to reimagine. First of all, we need to understand that schooling is different from learning. And I think the world thinks that if you go to school, then it's equivalent to education or learning. But that's not true. If we understand that learning is different from schooling and school is not the only place we learn, then we have a responsibility to broaden and acknowledge all of those environments where people can learn. For us in Sierra Leone, as we developed our vision for what we want in in education in general, and it's a singular sector plan. So we have, even though there are two ministries, we have one education sector plan that cuts across the whole way. But our vision is that the kids can access basic, senior secondary, technical, vocational, higher education, such that they can fulfill their human potential, they can participate in the global economy, and they can participate in civic life, right? Democracy, they can be civic citizens. Because humanity, the point about life, anyways, that we can live in communities, we can be good, responsible civic citizens. We can fend for ourselves, we can be entrepreneurial, we can make money here and there, we can provide food, we can access good quality health and roof over our heads, and then the global human potential as well. We take care of our environments. We make sure that we don't run out of water, clean drinking water, and food, and we can fulfill our potential, our welfare and well-being, and all of that. That's the value of education. That's the value of learning, and you can't stop until you're dead.
That's true.
And I think it's the ways in which we can promote that in Sierra Leone and everywhere. One is curriculum, and you think about the curriculum, and you have state of the art 21st century curriculum, skills based, the language that we all use these days. We have in Sierra Leone, we have 5 C's: critical thinking, creativity, computational thinking, comprehension, and civics, because we think these embed all the things that people can learn. These are the skills that we want our children to be able to get, such that they can be entrepreneurs, they can fulfill their human potential, and they can participate in civic life.
It's interesting. You've and you attended in the States. You went to college in the United States and got your doctoral degree at MIT, right?
Yes.
All right. So I moderated a panel earlier today on what is the value of is there still value in higher education? We question that in the United States a lot. Does higher ed still have value? What about alternative credentials? What about this? What about that? How do you view it? How do you view it? And how does Sierra Leone, what stance do you take on higher education, as it were?
I think it's a limiting framework and a limiting mindset a little bit. It's like higher education is used to do ABCD. And so, what's the value of going to a 4 year university somewhere? I did my undergrad at Harvard, and I still have very great friends from college. But I I did engineering, and I used to say that the only thing I still remember that I learned in college is my Spanish, and even that I'm forgetting it a little bit because now I've gone back to Sierra Leone. So
That's right.
I think it's that the subject that I learned,
Sure.
but then the way of thinking, the core curriculum, the life, the friendship, the network, the writing that you learn, those are fundamental, and those relationships are you can't get anywhere else. So, what's the value of a Harvard education or a college education? It's beyond the contents that you learned. It's not the problem sets. I don't remember my thermodynamics problem sets.
Me neither. I don't remember that either.
And so, but I remember the networks and the values and the things that I did, and the football that I played with my friends, and my friend who got a head injury when we were at Dartmouth, and what we
Yep.
did to respond to that. Those are the things that I remember. And so for higher and technical education, I did my PhD at MIT Media Lab on prosthetics, because I still
Easy stuff.
yes,
You did it easy stuff.
So I still apply that crazily, and I teach at the university as well in Sierra Leone. I teach in
Of course you do.
innovation and entrepreneurship to final year honor students across all the engineering departments, and then I teach fourth year students design as well. And I think I want to have my students understand that it's a state of being, it's life. That when we're in class and we're engaging, it's not about what I tell them, specifically the content. They can go figure out that content. It's how you think, it's how you problem solve, it's how you work in a group, it's how you submit stuff together, it's how you collaborate with your friends, it's how you express yourself when I ask you a question. So it's those things are valuable any day. You can't not learn them. It's so the conversation is limiting. It's how we think about those spaces and how we think about education, and the point around what the physical building and the community, the gates, what those are, and the people who are there. It's the humans, it's the relationships, it's the things that we learn out of class.
We talked the education piece, but that's not all that you do. And I know we have limited time, but I want to get this in. You're also Chief Innovation Officer. So you have a big technology piece, I'm assuming, or
Yes.
You're always aware of what's coming, how it connects to education, how it enhances the pipeline. But beyond that, what is the future of learning? What is the future of society? How does technology connect those dots? How do you stay up to date? How do you stay at the front end? And how do you look at what's happening in technology and embed it? Because kids, I mean, they know as much as we do about technology. I have a 7-year-old
They
and
know
a 4-year-old,
more
and
than we.
yeah, they get my phone. Forget about it. I got 40 videos on here running around the house taking pictures of, So how do you stay at the front end, and what is it? There's a lot in there. So just give me what you got. Unload everything that's in your brain.
I think I'm lucky because the president decided to keep me as chief innovation officer. Even
Smart guy.
When he, yes, I'm grateful to
Yeah.
him. Even though when he made me minister of basic education, and within that capacity, I still every now and then write code, and I engage with my staff within the ministry. We have folks who are working on data and technology. My background, when I left MIT, I went to IBM and became a data scientist, and so I get to apply some of that thinking still. And because I teach at the university,
Have you done a podcast? Have you started your own podcast yet?
Not yet.
At least I've done something you haven't done. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm happy to be on this. But it's important that we are able to engage, actively with society. We're able to problem solve together. And so I collaborate a lot with researchers. I try to publish here and there, with faculty friends of mine in the education and in the health space. Both being connected with my faculty at Harvard and MIT, and collaborating with other people from
So you're
University of
really reaching
Pretoria.
globally. You reach globally to your network and bring those pieces back to Sierra Leone as much as possible.
I think because we can all learn from each other. I do think that a lot of the reasons why we've accelerated so much. Look, I would the I just learned that the Mo Ibrahim report indicates that Sierra Leone over a 10-year period is one of the best countries that has jumped in terms of education.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I think it's an element of what are we doing well that people can learn from us. What's Burundi doing well that we can learn from them? Like I said, it's great that the US is finally focused on pre-K and bringing it to everybody as well. We can learn from each other in that way. There's a lot we can all learn from the US about higher and technical education around the research and things like that. So the world can exchange ideas. The way we think about assessments, the way we think about inclusion and equity, it's very different. The way we think about hybrid technologies is different. The way we understand where research is going. We need to be in a world where just because you're in Europe or America does not mean your ideas are more important than us in Sierra Leone or Guinea or anywhere else.
That's right.
Or Azerbaijan. It's that we all can learn from each other. And I think that's the element in research that's not necessarily present in government, because in government you want to just say we're the best, we're the greatest, we are so good at what we do. And I feel a little bit lucky that as a researcher, my immediate impulse is not to say we know it all as a government,
Right.
but it's what, how, why, and asking research questions is what drives what we do in Sierra Leone.
Well, I'm pretty sure that every assignment that you ever took, you received
100%.
to be able to do everything that you've done. I appreciate you so much. It's an honor to meet you.
Thank
It
you.
sounds like you're just making huge strides for Sierra Leone. It takes a village to do the work of education. So I'm sure you surround yourself with amazing people as well. An honor to have you on. This is Dr. David Moinina Sengeh. He is the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education and, very importantly, the Chief Innovation Officer for the government of Sierra Leone. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
Everybody, you've just ed upped